When brought into the discussion regarding what the definitive best Pokemon games are, you'll hear quite a few answers. However, there's one answer that appears more than the rest do, and that is Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. As the 10th mainline installment in the series out of the 18 installments available as of April 2021, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are not available yet. You'd probably ask, why? Is it nostalgia? Maybe. Quality gameplay? Well, that's what we're here to break down today. We're going to look at these games under a critical eye and break down the games enough to determine if they should even be in conversation for the best games. I've stated on this channel before that these games are kinda not great. So, without further ado, it's time I back up my claim. So, the best place to start when talking about these games is to remind everyone that this is a remaster of our third mainline installments to the series, Pokemon Gold and Silver. And at the same time, they sprinkled in a few changes from the fourth game, Pokemon Crystal, in as well. But of course, this is the fourth generation of Pokemon, so the games will feel a lot like the games that released in the same generation as these ones have. Of course, being Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. Basically having the same mechanics as in those games, mostly new items, evolutions for old Pokemon, and the new physical special split that was featured in Generation 4. Of course, featuring other things like a few new characters, improved Pokemon learn sets, extra routes, updated visuals, new sprites, and a pretty good soundtrack. But of course we gotta break this stuff down. So let's start at the place where this game is set, the Johto region. So, as you'd expect from a remake of the Johto region itself, is mostly the same as it was 10 years ago in Gold and Silver. Game Freak was a little too faithful here, but that's when we get to the gameplay perspective. As it was in the old, the game is basically no story other than Team Rocket's trying to rebuild themselves after disbanding in the events of Pokemon Red, Blue, Fire Red, Leaf Green. Most notably here, the Team Rocket admins are their own characters now, which they connect to the Fire Red, Leaf Green post-game. Again, a nice little fan service. Sadly, the game's climax was the same as it was in Gold and Silver, peaking at Team Rocket taking over a radio tower in order to bring Giovanni back to them. And yeah, that's it. He doesn't actually return, except for some mystery gift stuff, but that's in the past, not the present. Basically meaning the most climactic part of the game is still lame. There is no hype here, considering Team Rocket fails before even succeeding in their biggest goal. Whereas, let's say in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, or Diamond and Pearl, or even to an extent, X and Y, their evil team leaders did succeed by the time the players stopped them. But in the case of that last one, it happens last second, but who cares? Anyways, the most climactic part of the game, in this case, is very underwhelming. This is where these games, being remakes, could have improved the story, but they preserved the legacy instead. Anyways, story aside, the Johto region itself got a few improvements, most notably an extension west of Cianwood City, featuring 2 routes and a Safari Zone, the latter being this game's biggest redeeming quality. However, Johto isn't this game's only setting, because as it was in Gold and Silver, Kanto was brought back just like in those games, and it had a few changes, most notably Cerulean Cave, Viridian Forest, and the Seafoam Islands actually returned from Red, Blue, Yellow, Fire Red, and Leaf Green, after being cut in Gold and Silver. For some reason, this part of the game still takes 2 to 3 hours, even if you're slow about it. Kind of a problem. Overall, the regions themselves improve, but not by too much. But I think it's time to get to the meat of the video, the gameplay. Because, dear lord, this part is a mess. So, the first part of the gameplay we need to quickly touch on, I mentioned earlier, but it's Generation 4's physical special split. Basically, this change allows for more Pokemon themselves being more viable than they were in past games. Notable examples would of course include the likes of Gengar, Sneasel, and Hitmonchan. Sneasel had good attack, and its stabs were both special. Gengar, both of its stab typings were physical in the older gens, and Hitmonchan had the elemental punches, which were all special, which, now that they're physical, give it good coverage. Abilities also exist now, so that's cool. And with every new generation, Pokemon get improved level up learn sets, as mentioned earlier. Examples here are Cyndaquil and Zubat. In GSC, Cyndaquil learned Ember at level 12. In Heart Gold Soul Silver, it gets it at level 10. Zubat, as an example, learned Wing Attack at level 27 in Gold, Silver, and Crystal. You know, after it would normally evolve. But in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, it learns it at level 17. Meaning it'll actually be helpful for the Bugsy fight, other than just its resistances. Other than that, minor improvements to the Pokemon themselves. On to Johto and the Pokemon inhabiting it. Now, as I mentioned how the story was too faithful to the originals, the trainer Pokemon have similar problems. And by that, we just have to look at the gym leader teams. With the exception of one Johto gym leader. Every Pokemon on their team are the exact same in the originals. Again, movesets aside, only Claire's team has a single change in a Pokemon, where she drops one of her 3 Dragonair for a Gyarados, which isn't even a Dragon type. And the issue here is the teams themselves. On the bright side, they're leveled a little better and have better attacks. But looking at the teams, you notice an issue. Falkner, Bugsy, Morty, and Chuck all have full teams of Pokemon from Kanto. Now, this was an issue in Gold, Silver, and Crystal, but it's worse in Heart Gold, Soul Silver, considering they actually could have fixed this problem. Here's a few ways they could have fixed this. Falkner could have had a Hoot Hoot in place of his Pidgey. Bugsy could have had a Ledian and Spinarak in place of the Metapod and Kakuna. Morty could have replaced either his Ghastly or one of his 2 Haunters with Mischievous. And they could have given Chuck a Hitmontop. Seriously, these aren't game-breaking changes. One of these, for an example, would be like a Mantine on Falkner's team, but that's just bad balancing. Moving away from the Johto gym leaders, the Kanto leaders are in the same boat. However, they get a pass on the Johto only rule. But looking at the teams, we see an issue. 6 of the 8 teams are the exact same as they were in Gold, Silver, and Crystal, Janine and Blue being the exceptions. However, Janine's change is more of a spit in the face, because they actually made it worse in terms of their Pokemon. Swapping out one of the Mucks for a second Ariados? Why? And in Blue's case, they swapped his Alakazam for a Machamp. Now, as I said earlier with the Johto gym leaders, the Kanto gym leaders have had their levels buffed as well. So now, we have no cases where a gym leaders team is all below level 40 in Kanto. Now they're all 47 or higher guaranteed. But enough of the gym leaders for now. Let's focus on the rival in E4. Again, better levels do need to be noted. But for some reason in the Burn Tower rival fight within Heart Gold and Soul Silver, they de-evolved the Haunter your rival would have at this point within Gold, Silver, and Crystal. It's a weird choice, but whatever. However, his team is otherwise the same, even in Kanto, which can be seen as an issue, but only in regards to his Magneton, which, to be fair in his case, you can't even evolve from Magneton yourself without training his Diamond, Pearl, or Platinum. And then his Sneasel, of course, would also not evolve, even in the weekly post-game rematches. Again, faithfulness coming at the cost of difficulty. Now, looking at the Pokemon League, we see that all the Elite Four members have the same Pokemon at the same levels. It's a weird choice, but I guess it works. However, the champion fight got a few extra levels, and his level 50 Dragonite and Aerodactyl have legal movesets now. And to end off the important trainers, Red was adjusted to be even more of a hassle. 5 of his Pokemon stay intact. However, they've replaced his Espeon for a Lapras, and then there's also the chance for Hail to be in the battle permanently. However, you can set the clock to a certain time and then you don't have to worry about it. Now that we're done with that, we can look at the wild Pokemon, and on the concept of increased levels, why are the wild Pokemon so pitifully underleveled? Let's use Falkner as an example. His highest level Pokemon is a 13, and the highest level Pokemon you can find around his gym are level 6 at best. Now Bugsy's level 17 Ace, level 6-ish wild Pokemon. Why? At least by Whitney you can finally see level 10s, but even then that's still like a 10 level difference. The best Victory Road has to offer are around level 36 at best, and 32 at worst. Help you prep for a level 50 Dragonite. Even though in Crystal, for some reason, you can find Grapplers around level 40. Thanks, however. Once you roll into Kanto, the postgame, might I add, level 25 is around the best you have to grind on. Literally, just go back to Victory Road and deal with the grinding for levels, and then, around level 60 to deal with Blue's team. At least Mount Silver and Cerulean Cave have the 40s range to work with for wild encounters, while you prep with Red's level 80 Pokemon. At least Pokemon Sword and Shield went off to do this best, as you can find Pokemon just straight up near the gym leader's ace levels, and even in the case of Bee or Alistair, you can find wild Pokemon in Glimbo and Tangle by going up to some grass, despite not having the entire area opened, and still find Pokemon at their ace's level that you can catch. They were fairly frequent in game, overall. Even then, given that game's EXP mechanic makes grinding a non-issue, Pokemon Black and White 1 had Pokemon well leveled in the wild, and even featured one that would give more XP when you take it out. Even then, the second gym in those games have an ace of 20. Yet, going one route over, you can find level 17-ish Pokemon, not level 6. Heart Gold and Soul Silver, without a shadow of a doubt, is the worst in the series regarding leveling, because these are remakes. They easily could have fixed this, but decided not to. So, on the topic of battles, let's just look at the quality of Pokemon available in this game's regional Pokédex. We have 10 Generation 4 evolutions for Johto Kanto Pokemon that are just absent for main story use. 3 of them are just straight up unobtainable, period. Without trading from Diamond, Pearl, or Platinum. Meaning, excluding those 10, only 5 are available during the Johto portion of the game. And like, why aren't the new baby Pokemon listed in the game's regional Pokédex? Like, yeah, you can't get them, but they're a piece of the evolution line and should still be included. Happiny and Mantike, I'm looking at you. Now, looking at some Pokemon that are now attainable during main story use, the Safari Zone will bring us Mr. Mime, Misdreavus, Murkrow, Kangaskhan, Larvitar, and Cubone. See any issue here? While I do appreciate that these extra few Pokemon do make the game better, the problem is, only half of those 6 are from Johto. And since Misdreavus and Murkrow can't even evolve till post-game anyways, there's no reason to even use them. And since Larvitar evolved super late, you're just gonna have to overlevel for Lance, making it a cakewalk because you already have Tyranitar. You don't overlevel, and you still have a Pupitar, and it's dead weight. Marowak and Mr. Mime actually feel like fair additions to the game's main story, since Mr. Mime gives you a middle ground choice in terms of psychic types between the likes of Hypno, Slowbro, or Xatu. But to be fair, it is an inferior version of Alakazam. That's a trait evolution. While on the other hand, Marowak can be a Soul Silver run's grace for a ground type, since both Gligar and Phanpy just so happen to be version exclusives to Heart Gold here. And on one quick note for version exclusives, Heart Gold actually has 2 more, thanks to Mantike and Gliscor existing. should you actually still have the Pokewalker accessory that came with the game's launch, Elekid can also be used before the post-game. Again, the improved Pokemon you can get this time around via How Early, but in too many cases, forgot to make them actually any good. And for whatever reason, they decided to shove Ho-Oh or Lugia into the main story of the game last minute to inflate the amount of time you're going to spend playing it. And then when you're in Kanto, Mewtwo, Articuno, Moltres, and Zapdos are legendaries that you can catch now that actually were not available within Gold, Silver, and Crystal. So they forced some new side story nonsense in to make Suicune easier to obtain. Sadly, it's in Kanto, so now you can't even get it prior to beating main story. And at some point after beating all 16 gyms, you can get access to Rock Climb HM, and there's a few random trees blocked behind Rock Climb, featuring Tailo, Burmy, Cherubi via Headlights. These aren't part of the regional decks, but we don't care. Again, there's a lot, since most of it's post-game, you'll probably be running like a team of 3 for the whole game. So onto the true post-game content, and the new content, I guess. During the main story, when you reach Goldenrod City, you'll notice the game corner. It was only changed for the international releases, and as such, we no longer have slot machines, and an unintended side effect to losing the slot machines, we now lose the ability to buy coins. Meaning if you want to get the HMs or Pokemon via the game corner, you have to do a bunch of tedious grinding, as they literally force you to play the game now. Since they changed the slot machines out, I guess we can mention Voltorb Flip, the new replacement. The game itself's honestly fine, but however, forcing us to grind it instead of just allowing us to buy coins is just foolish, man. So the next thing to mention is the Pokeathlon Dome. To shorten this place down, it's a minigame center featuring 9 good minigames and Goal Roll. It's fine content, but when you realize that this is the best of 2 methods to get evolutionary stones, it gets annoyingly tedious, as you'll need to grind points to buy those stones. So the next little bit of content to mention, I've kind of already mentioned already, which is the Safari Zone, featuring changes that make it different to the prior experiences with it. Most notably, it doesn't kick you out anymore after you take 500 steps. So we got other new features, including the ability to customize it, to actually change the terrain itself and the encounter pools. And exclusive to the post-game, an in-depth customization that allows you to play stuff, which in return can increase the amount of wild Pokemon you can encounter within each area. However, you have to do little mini-quests, and by that, I mean catch a single Pokemon. To unlock access to this, which is fine, you have to repeat it for the second feature. If you seriously see this as an issue, then you are just nitpicking far too much. As Pokemon Crystal was an enhancement, they added very minimal changes to the game, but the biggest change they did have was the addition of the Battle Tower. But Heart Gold and Soul Silver took a different approach, and they just straight up copy-pasted the Battle Frontier from Platinum. Literally no changes, which seems fine until you worry about the Pokemon timeline, and how we can have these Tower Tycoons at 2 regions at once, and the game makes no sense because of that. But listen up, Buttercup. You already know how Nintendo IPs can't have functional timelines. Just look at that hot mess The Legend of Zelda has become, trying to connect those individual, independent games to one another. Anyways, back to Heart Gold and Soul Silver. More or less Kanto. As mentioned earlier, Cerulean Cave, Viridian Forest now exists again, and the Seafoam Islands are now more than 1 room. However, other than that, not much other stuff was added. They did change that one house in Viridian City, so you can fight some unique teams from people you encounter with the Pokewalker, but it only works if you and somebody else actually have one. So Mount Silver also got an entire redesign, and now forces you to teach a Pokemon Rock Climb if you want to explore it. And now in terms of post-game content, we have one little addition allowing you to catch Rayquaza and either Kyogre or Groudon in this extra cave lost somewhere on Route 47. For some reason, you can't do this until you get the free Kanto starter from Professor Oak after you beat Red. And for a few finishing notes, you can actually re-battle gym leaders this time around. And to do so, you have to have already beaten Red to get into the post game. Then, you'll just need to randomly come across a gym leader at some place that isn't their gym to get their number. After doing that, you have to call them at a very specific time. And then you can fight them at the fighting dojo in Saffron City. And yes, they have beefed up teams, featuring Pokemon that were additions in Gen 3 and 4, and in some cases those new Gen 4 evolutions that I mentioned prior, like Blue uses a Rhyperior now, Erica has a Tangrowth, you get the point. And after defeating Red, the E4 also gets improved teams, meaning that Lance has a team that no longer gets walked all over by rock types. The addition of Cameron the Photographer was a waste and unnecessary. They straight up changed the female protagonist from Crystal within these games. Like, why? So there's this new shiny leaf mechanic, and it does nothing besides count as a star for the trainer card for some reason. So there was this event with Arceus to get a Sinnoh Creation Trio Legendary. It featured one small area that basically serves no purpose. However, this is the only way to obtain the Grisius Orb within the game. Meaning, Giratina won't be able to use its origin form if you don't have the event at all, since it's impossible to trade one over from another copy of Heart Gold Soul Silver or Platinum. And somehow during the original scripting for this video, I completely forgot to mention Pokemon following you. A very, very minor addition that became known as this game's identity for some reason. It ended up as the community's most requested returning feature for games to come, despite the fact it doesn't improve the actual experience, unlike when this mechanic returns in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, where it actually influenced the game depending on a few Pokemon you use. Sadly, this feature wasn't able to be turned off during Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Even after you've done literally everything, you cannot turn it off. Luckily in Let's Go and Sword and Shield, you can actually toggle it so you can turn it off if it gets distracting or you just can't see in the wild area, because Eternatus is absolutely massive. However, there is a bonus to talking to the Pokemon you have following you, and that is that they will give you the dress-up accessories from Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, despite the fact the contests as a whole are absent. For some reason, the dress-up minigame returns, minus the minigame part. So all you do now is just dress them up in the Goldenrod Underground. And that's about it. Since Mixing Records can share your saved image, the dress-up feature actually has to use the Pokemon Diamond and Pearl sprites. Other than that, there's actually nothing really else to talk about. So, I think it's time for the closing statement. Too faithful. Those are two words I'd use to describe Heart Gold and Soul Silver. While these games brought the original experience of Gold and Silver into the modern light, they kept the games too close to the originals. Ultimately, this allows the biggest flaws of Gold, Silver, and Crystal to still bleed through onto these definitive experiences that Heart Gold and Soul Silver will be for the Johto region. Now, as I stated in the video earlier, I mentioned something. It's regarding whether or not it's the best. And while it's not the best of the series, it does one thing best and one thing debatably the best than any other game. In debatable terms, the amount of content is kind of unreal, but to be fair, they did do one thing definitively best than any other games, and that is the method in which you shiny hunt the starters. Now, you can see whether or not any of the three will be shiny before actually grabbing one. Now, you're probably wondering where this game is getting ranked, right? Like, out of 10 or something? Well, despite all the good I might have talked up for a while, I cannot lie and say the goods outshadow the negatives here. Out of the whole Pokemon series, these games are still some of the slowest in the series, and while having some of the worst pacing issues we've ever seen, making the game an absolute chore to play through. So, without any further ado, the final verdict. Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, with its ups and downs, clocks in with a score of 4.5 out of 10. Below average.